All right, what else? What else did? Okay, so you went out every 6 months or something. You said I
No,
don't
every
remember.
month.
Every month. Okay,
Yeah.
so
But
after 6 months, you said that.
after 6 months, why I was scheduled to go on staff. So I asked the boss if I could go up country. There was a big signal outfit up at Onkay, and see if they had and see if they had any openings for me to be in a command. But of course, everyone wants to be in command. That's what everyone does, and that's the way you get your points or your uh, proof that you're a decent officer, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, he said, "Yeah, sure, go ahead." And so I hopped on a plane. I think it was a Monday morning
From Saigon
from
to.
Saigon, flying up to Ankei. And I got up there in the afternoon, and I went over to their signal group, signal battalion, I think it was, up there, and went in and talked to the executive officer and told him what I was up there for and so forth. He said, "Well, you're out of luck." He said, "We are at full strength for our officers," and he said, "Besides that, they're all out in the field. There's no one here to even talk to. Battalion commanders out there and everything." But he said, "I don't have any open slots up here anyway." So I said, "Okay," to myself, "Okay." So I said I need a place to stay, and he gave me a place to stay. And I went over there and killed time. Went overnight. Hey, stop it. And the next morning I got up, and Armed Forces Radio was talking about attacks all over Vietnam, and Tom Son Nhut had just been attacked, and part of it had been overrun, and that was my Task Force 35 that I just turned over command to the day before I came up here, and so they were the guys that were deployed out to the perimeter to help because several air police well, not really pillboxes, I guess. Maybe they were pillboxes. But anyway, several of their spots around Tom Son Nhut had been overrun, and so my guys were sent out to back them up and do what they could do. Anyway, so of course I was beside myself, and I started trying to get back to Saigon, and I couldn't. Nothing would fly into there because Tom Son Nhut was under attack. So I was able to get a hop to Cam Ranh Bay. Now, Cam Ranh Bay, when I got there, oh, by the way, I forgot to say that on K there was no attacks there while I was there that night, that Monday night. So I got out of there and got to Cam Ranh Bay, and in Cam Ranh Bay, they were they were not actually under attack, but they were under red alert, which meant attack was imminent. And that night, on K, where I just left, was attacked. But Cam Ranh Bay, even though it was under red alert, was quiet as could be. Nothing happened. So the following morning, I was able to catch a hop back to Bien Hoa, which was outside of Long Binh. And I caught a hop down there, and everything was laid in waste around Bien Hoa. I mean, it was just nothing but smoke and ruins around most of the area there. And I got in there, and that night Cam Ranh Bay was attacked, and I couldn't get a hop. I couldn't drive down to Saigon, so I thought I was going to be stuck there in Cam Ranh Bay for a while. But a fighter pilot came in, and I talked to him, and he agreed to put me into the back seat of his plane, and he was going down to Saigon, or he flew me down to Saigon. I don't know if he was going down there, but he flew me down to Saigon, and we landed, and I got out, and everything was relatively quiet there. There was some smoking ruins around parts of the area, but not on Long Binh itself. I mean, excuse me, not on boy, mine's a terrible thing to waste. Where was he flying me to?
Well, you're flown into Saigon.
He was flying into Saigon, but he was flying me into the airport that my command was on, the 69 Signal Battalion. So I walked over to Signal Battalion, and it turns out that all of the officers had been cut off in the Cayman Hotel, and the only weapons they had with them in the hotel were 2 or 3 guys had 45 pistols, and the they had nothing to really repel the enemy if the enemy attacked. But of course, they weren't bothered. No one bothered anyone. But it turns out I was the only officer in our command left on post at that point in time.
In Saigon.
Yeah. So I was a battalion commander for a few hours anyway. but pretty soon the officers got back, and I briefed them, and I finally took my medicine and transferred to staff there. Stayed in staff for some time. Now, what I didn't tell you was the first part of my tour in Vietnam. Why Mom and I, there's just no way to talk to each other by phone or anything else. But when I transferred over to take command of the Signal Support Command, the MARS station, Military Affiliated Radio System, MARS, M-A-R-S. What that is basically, at that time, and I don't even know if they still exist because there's not the need for it now with everyone having their own phone and everything. But in those days, you had no way to talk to anyone really outside of the military channels. Stop it, dog! Stop it! And so the Mars station also belonged to me, was assigned to me as when I was in H&H. When I moved to the Signal Support Company, when I took over that, the Mars station belonged to that, and so that was set up so that the troops could come.
What's the cookie?
When they had the time, they could come and see if they could book a radio telephone call to the States. And the way it worked is basically Mars was nothing but a ham radio. And again, I don't know if that even exists in today's world because no one needs it. But in that time, you could make a call to another ham operator near where you wanted to put the call, or you might be able to just take it to someone who would patch you in on post, and then you'd talk to the post folks about who you wanted to talk to. Anyway, long story short, when I took over the ham, or the Mars rather, too, I went over and I talked to the operators and I said, look, I don't want you to ever put me ahead of anyone, but if you come up with a time when you don't have anyone that is talking, I'd like you to just go ahead and call my wife and then call me and I'll talk to her. So it turned out that Mom and I got to talk together sometimes several nights in succession, several times 2 or 3 nights a week, that type of thing. I talked to her more by phone then than probably did when we were together just about. But anyway, she would go to these teas, these ladies' teas, which the Army still had at that time. And the ladies would talk about not being able to talk to their husbands and so on and so forth. And she said she was so embarrassed she'd just keep quiet about the fact she was talking to me just about every night. And but it was this was not just a regular telephone call though. This is a one-way call. It was not duplex. It was simplex. So you would go, "Hi, honey," over, and someone was always
listening
because they had to then reverse the call.
Mm-hmm.
And after when you'd say over, he'd reverse it so that Helen could say, "Hi, honey," and over, and then he'd transfer it to me. And so that's the way it worked in the Mars. Which was
you would hear each other's voices.
Oh yes,
yeah,
oh yes,
you could just, it was. Just, yeah,
absolutely. You were patched through. You could talk directly and everything, and so I think maybe I think Mom said one time when there were some problems on her end or something like that, and I had just said, "I love you," over. And she had tried to say again, "I love you," over. And finally she said to the guy that was doing transfer, she said, "I can't understand him." And he said, "He loves you, sir, ma'am."